I'm Rob.
And I'm Nate.
And welcome back to Rob and Nate Record a Podcast. This is the opening of our first episode in our Mystery Pack month.
You know what this episode's about. We don't know what this episode is about yet because we've not yet opened our mystery bundles.
Yeah.
So this is the third year that we've done this. These come from the Record Exchange in Boise, Idaho. To move all these old DVDs, they put a bunch four of them, in a brown paper bag. Charge you $2.99 for mystery bundle. And last 2 years we've had appropriately mixed results.
We had one that was a really exceptional bundle. Mm-hmm. The rest have tended to be a little bit mixed. Yeah. Though you usually get at least one good solid title. So
the basic rules is we watch whatever's in here unless it's a TV show or like a half an hour of people snowboarding like happened one time before, or something we've already seen.
Yeah.
So we got two bundles. I think this is probably the last year we're going to do these from the Record Exchange.
So why did you pull out two bundles?
Because I have two bundles. I have two bundles left. So I'm going to let you choose bundle. And then afterwards we'll open the other bundle and see what we missed out on. Kind of like a game show. This bundle.
Yes.
All right. You open the bundle. This is what we're stuck with. This is the suitcase you chose.
Captivating audio. Are we ready? I'm not looking at it.
This suspense is really building.
Okay. I'm not looked. I'm just reaching into the bag.
What do we got?
First title out, Relic Hunter.
Relic Hunter. Oh, what is Relic Hunter?
Tierra Carrere, Kristen Anholt. It's a 1999, copyrighted in 1999. It almost looks like it's a Paramount. Yeah.
Yeah, this looks like it's not going to be good. But we're going to watch it anyway.
Number 2, The Life Before Her Eyes. Evan Rachel Wood, Uma Thurman. So that's got some potential. Magnolia Entertainment.
Huh. I don't think I've ever heard of these movies so far.
It's a rated R movie.
Indeed.
You want to check anything out on that?
Intense and artful. I'm going to go into mostly blind, I think.
Okay. Movie number 3.
Okay.
This is one we're going to end up skipping. Bosu Balance Trainer.
Indeed.
It's a balance ball trainer video.
Okay, yeah. Yay, so we can...
Total body workout movie.
Okay.
No,
so,
we don't... Yeah, we're skipping that.
We gotta fill that in with something else. Maybe from the other package.
Title number 4, Independence Day, which we have already covered.
Have we? Not on the podcast.
I thought we did both Independence Days.
No. I think we've talked about it, but we have not actually recorded on Independence Day.
This is the original one, so it's the good one.
That's a good one. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to open the other bag, and we'll choose something from this bag to fill in for the total body workout video. And maybe if we see something that we like enough, we'll cop out and alternate one of the other ones because we're just not as committed to the format as we once were.
Yeah.
All right, so video number 1, Resident Evil Degeneration. This is a CGI Resident Evil movie. I don't know if I can even bring myself to watch it or try to start it independently. That may just go straight to Savers. Snowboard Academy with Jim Varney.
We've already come close to watching this.
We've come close to watching that. And Bridget Nelson and Corey Haim. All right, that's a contender for bad. Men in Black.
Two Will Smith movies.
We've got Independence Day and Men in Black. And finally, The Matrix Revolutions. Is this Matrix 2 or is this Matrix 3?
I can't remember. I think it's 3. Yeah.
Well, you know what? We have access to all the information in the world in the palm of our hands. We can figure that out.
Yeah. While you're doing that, I'm going to the episode list because I thought we did do...
No, we haven't. It is the 3rd installment in the Matrix trilogy. That's the one I remember having absolutely no use for.
That's funny.
Wow.
Yeah. Interesting bundles.
All right, so that one's going to Savers. So, do we want to do Independence Day? I think we should just do one Will Smith. So we can do either Men in Black or Independence Day.
I would say probably Independence Day.
I would probably agree with that.
Yeah.
And then...
I have a serious question on Relic Hunter because it says disc 1.
Oh, you're right. Let's Google Relic Hunter. That could be a TV show.
It is. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 episodes of a TV show.
Oh. Okay. All right, so that leaves us... So we've got Life Before Our Eyes, we've got Independence Day. Do we want to do Snowboard Academy? Or alternately, we could have each of us just choose something.
Or do we want to throw Matrix back in?
I don't know if I want to watch Matrix 3 without having watched any of the other Matrix in close proximity.
I can loan you DVDs.
I don't know if I really want to revisit the Matrix.
All right, so we're going with 2, and then we'll each pick one.
We'll each pick something out.
For the extra week.
Do we want to try to do any particular theme in what we choose? I had joked earlier that we should try to choose things that we think the other person will hate. But I don't know.
I don't know if I want to do that. I'm sure I could find something you'd hate. I'm not sure I want to watch it with you.
Oh, okay.
I think we just pick something we want to show the other person.
Okay, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
That'll work.
Okay. Kind of slightly disappointing in the mystery pack.
I know, yeah.
I may end up just playing the YouTube game to pick mine.
Oh, that's an idea.
So, we'll see.
Yeah, maybe select something.
I've got to look at a few other things and see if there's something else I just want to show you. So
maybe look for something off the beaten path.
Yeah.
Maybe that'd be a category.
Maybe I'll use that as a moment to get you to watch certain Adam Sandler's.
No.
Oh, Uncut Gems.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Surprises. All right, so you guys already know what we're talking about in this episode. We still don't know what we're talking about in this episode, so we'll talk to you later. I'm Rob.
I'm Nate.
And welcome back to Rob and Nate Record a Podcast. This is week 1 of the Mystery Pack month. You've listened to our intro of us opening the films, or opening the Mystery Pack and seeing what films are in it. And this is the first movie that we're recording out of that pack.
They know this.
Huh?
They know this.
Sorry, I apologize. So we started with the 2007 film The Life Before Her Eyes.
It's a 2007 copyright, but it has a release date of April 2008.
I tend to just go with whatever's on IMDb, and IMDb said 2007, but yeah, 2007 or 2008. This is based on a book written by, I looked it up just a moment ago, Laura Kasishki. I don't know how to pronounce her last name, but it is based on a book. Guessing from what I read on Goodreads that this is a relatively faithful adaptation, but not having read the source material, I'm not positive about that.
It feels like it's written based on a book. Is it a Christian book?
Yes.
Okay.
We will get into that in a few minutes. I thought this was possibly something else as we were watching it, and I can get more in, or I will get more into that when we talk about what this is a part of.
This kind of surprised me because we opened the package. I saw the cover. You got Uma Thurman, Evan Rachel Wood, and the title, but I didn't read the back. So I came in knowing basically nothing about this.
We both came in blind.
And it's a kind of movie. There's something about that kind of works, and I kind of feel I have to be careful with the way I word this. This is a movie about a school shooting. And I didn't know I was getting into a movie about a school shooting, which kind of echoes the surprise that the characters feel when it happens.
Yeah, you're not too far into this movie when you get the first sounds and whatnot of the school shooting, and Nate actually asked out loud, he said, is this a school shooting movie? And it turns out that is what it is. The book is inspired by the events of Columbine.
Okay.
This is a part of... There were several of these that came out in the wake of Columbine and a number of years after Columbine that were inspired by what turned out to be false stories surrounding Columbine. Specifically, like there was the story in Columbine about the student in the library who was praying, so they spared her. That was perpetuated for a long time before it was fully debunked. It never actually happened. But there was a bunch of these stories that were written in the wake of that were inspired by the events at Columbine.
I'm going to digress very briefly to say the best of the school shooting movies is Gus Van Sant's Elephant from 2003, which takes its title from the legend of the 7 Chinese brothers. They all fill the trunk or the tail or the tusk or whatever. They get a different sense where the elephant is. And so it is done from the perspective of various characters. There's a lot of hallway walking in it, which I've always said that's kind of my chief memory of high school is walking hallways. And that was, that's quite the film. It had quite the impact. For weeks after I saw it, everywhere I went, I was looking for an exit.
Yeah.
This didn't have quite that impact. We'll get into that.
Yeah, this movie is largely...
It's not so much about the shooting itself as it is about, in a way, the aftermath.
Yeah, and I was going to summarize this by saying this film is almost entirely exposition. We were making snide remarks early in the film about the way it sets up a bunch of its exposition with nature shots. That's absent from the latter half of the movie to a great extent. And there's kind of a major tonal shift partway through the movie that I noted. Like it's kind of set up earlier in the film when they talk about decomposition. And there's a specific movie in the film, or moment in the film, where it has a tonal shift and the rest of the film is basically decomposition, and they no longer do the expositional shots with nature after that. I don't know if you caught on to that.
Well, I guess the last of the nature shots is the messy house. I guess they're not necessarily always nature shots. They're kind of still life-ish shots. There's a lot of kind of motifs and things that keep repeating because this is done going back and forth. Evan Rachel Wood and Uma Thurman play the same character roughly for 15 years apart.
Yeah.
And just certain things that show up in the different timelines. Frozen yogurt, Emma, the name Emma. Cougars keep showing up. The song She's Not There, and of course, Paul McPhee, the philosophy professor. And the school. Was she teaching at the same school that she was? I felt like it was a different school in the same town. I thought she was
teaching at, like, community college.
Yeah, it might have been. You're right. It might have been a community college.
Like, that's not a high school level art class that she was teaching.
But she talks to that one student and talks to her about you could get into something school, something college. So maybe it is a community college, and she's saying you could do better, you could go to a regular college.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I don't think it was entirely clear to me if it was a junior college level or a high school level. But, of course, her husband is a professor at the local university.
Yeah. So let's go through some more cast real quick. You mentioned Evan Rachel Wood and Uma Thurman, who both play Diana. You also have Eva Amuri, who plays Maureen.
And you know whose daughter she is, right?
Not off the top of my head.
She's Susan Sarandon's daughter.
Oh, is she really?
Yeah. She was also in the movie Saved, in which she also played she played in that movie a Jew going to a Christian college, or a Christian high school, and in this one she plays a Christian going to a secular high school.
Yeah. And then you have Gabrielle Brennan, who plays Emma, which is Diana's daughter. You have Brett Cullen, who plays Paul, and Oscar Isaacs, who plays Marcus. And I don't think we really need to...
Yeah, it's a fairly early-ish role for Oscar Isaacs.
Yeah, I don't think we need to go into anyone else in the cast. And that's your principal cast that you see for most of the movie. And as Nate mentioned, it kind of flashes back and forth between an older Diana played by Uma Thurman and the high school Diana played by Evan Rachel Wood. I think that actually my favorite shot in this film, the best, most effective or affecting shot in the movie, in my opinion, is she's wearing her necklace that her husband gave her in the woods while she's looking for her daughter, and the necklace breaks and goes across her chest, and it's got red gems in it, and the gems pause in the spots where she ends up being shot later on in the film.
I noticed that.
I thought that was actually probably the best shot in the whole movie, but yeah. This movie has a lot of interpretation.
Yeah, and it jumps around, and we're kind of jumping around a little bit. We haven't even really talked about first impressions.
Let's first do the IMDb plot summary. The IMDb plot summary just says, the one-line plot summary is, a woman's survivor's guilt from a Columbine-like event 20 years ago causes her present-day idyllic life to fall apart. Actually,
15 years ago.
I was just going to correct it. They specifically say it's the 15th anniversary. Yeah, what was your first impressions of this? Now that we're 10 minutes
Now
into
that we're
this.
10 minutes into it, I feel like the bones are good. I feel like there's some interesting things in it, and I feel like particularly Evan Rachel Wood's performance is strong. Uma Thurman's not quite as strong. But I felt like it was really laying it on thick.
Oh, yeah.
And really kind of heavy-handed. And this movie tried too hard. It would probably be what I would say about it. I feel like it probably would work better as a book.
I'm not sure that I like the premise either way, and I'll get into this in a little bit. I agree with you. It was a little bit too heavy-handed. It was...
The movie literally hits you with a truck at one point.
The lack of... you're trying to base this off of an actual event while not basing it off of an actual event. And for me, that doesn't really connect.
See, I think for you, I mean, because you said very early on that you thought you knew what this was. And I think that was probably your focus on the movie. You were just, this backstory and what it was based on was kind of where your brain was more than what this movie actually is.
I opened up to it once I realized, it was probably less than 15 minutes into the film that I realized it wasn't the exact film that I thought it was. I don't know. I felt like I was relatively open to it. I don't feel like it landed.
No, I don't.
I think it was a little bit too heavy-handed for me. And there's some particular narratives in it that I didn't necessarily like how they approached.
Okay. You want to go into these?
This is a Christian film, and it delivers some Christian messages.
This is fairly subtle for a Christian.
I was going to say, but in a subtle way. In a relatively subtle way for a Christian.
It is a film in which you watch it and you ask, is this a Christian film? Because in some ways this film kind of hits you over the head with the artsy and the angst, but the Christianity of it is diffuse.
To a certain extent. I mean, there's also the parochial school. There's the scene outside the parochial school where they've got all the crosses of the unborn children. That's some of the messaging I was talking about that is relatively subtle for a lot of Christian films, but
still, yeah, not subtle on other standards.
Yeah. What other thoughts do you have on this film, Nate?
So what did you think of they never put an exact year on here. Mm-hmm. So this film made in 2007, came out in 2008. So we're thinking that's roughly when the present day, in quotes, sequence takes place. So high school was 1993-ish. What did you think of its depiction of the 90s? I thought it was subtle. Like it took me a while to kind of figure out. I mean, for a while I'm like, this has been 15 years, but it feels like the world's basically the same. Mm-hmm. Which actually kind of plays into something now that I think about it. I didn't think the computers, when they showed the computer lab after they were showing all the victims lying, it's like that, to me, looked like George W. Bush era computers, but that could be Clinton era computers. I guess they're close enough. But you had the CDs, which I guess you'd still have in the Bush era. A copy of Cosmo magazine appeared to be a 90s. Early 90s copy.
I think probably the only thing that really stands out as having been out of place in that regard was perhaps Oscar Isaac's cell phone. That was a early 2000s cell phone.
Was it? I didn't get a good look at it.
It was that more compact flip phone.
Yeah, I guess it could have been. You're right. That wasn't.
Whereas in the 90s you would have had.
Yeah.
If you had them, you would have had bricks.
So maybe that was set in 2005. It's not super clear. The one thing that also, I guess, is not super clear, because I think of it as a 90s reference, but it would have still been a doable reference at the time this film came out, were the two friends, Diana and Maureen. Diana she's got a working mother, she's not got the best relationship with her mother, whereas Maureen comes from a very Christian household. She's rather Christian. And they talk about how Diana kind of has this reputation around the school as an individual of loose bearing sexually. There's a word for that. But they're talking to each other about their unlikely friendship, and she jokes, "The virgin and the whore, this fall on the WB."
Yeah.
That's kind of a 90s reference, and that's kind
90s and early 2000s both.
Yeah, it's kind of works as a summary of this relationship, like really kind of characterizing it. But there's a truth to it.
So there's, again, this comes back to this film having been, in my opinion, almost entirely exposition. You can make the argument that this whole film that we watched basically never
happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, like, the life before her eyes is the life that she's not going to have because of the choices that she's made, which is why when she goes into the wood to find Diana, like when she finds her, she's not there.
Emma disappears.
When Diana goes in to find Emma, and she actually catches up with her, she's not there.
Goes into the sun,
and then that's when the necklace breaks, and then it's the bullets appear, and then it goes back to the bathroom. And so
there's this science teacher that Diana likes. Most of the students don't care for him, but Diana likes him.
It's Mr. McCloud, played by Jack Gilpin.
And so at the end of the semester, she goes up to him after class and basically says, look, I really enjoyed your class and I learned a lot in your class. And so he's talking to her, and because they're getting ready for the finals and she's not doing great, says, here's something that you can read and do an extra credit. You still have to take the final, but this could help, push your grade up. And it's a lecture by a professor named Paul McPhee.
Played by Brett Cullen.
So she listens to the lecture, or she goes to the lecture, and he talks about imagining your life, imagine our lives well, and that leads to, I guess, the twist, you could call it that, which is, as the movie is moving back and forth to the high school things and her as Uma Thurman, they keep kind of going to the scene in the bathroom at the shooting where the shooter comes in there and just not quite answering, giving you a little bit more each time, but not quite saying specifically what happened there. The implication, of course, is that the Christian friend is murdered. But that's not what happened. Diana is the one that gets shot. The shooter, named Michael, says, which one should I shoot? And Maureen says, shoot me. And Diana says, don't shoot me. And it's like, well, if I don't shoot you, who should I shoot? And then she says, shoot me. He does. And she gets killed. And so the movie becomes an occurrence at Elk Creek Bridge. Everything of the Uma Thurman timeline is something in the mind of the Evan Rachel Wood timeline, that character in the moments before death. And that's why you have the tie-ins to, they talk about frozen yogurt, the song that's on the radio, the professor. They all tie in together like dream logic.
Yeah. Well, and she builds this whole thing in her mind and also deconstructs the whole thing in her mind.
And she they have that conversation with her friend because, Evan Rachel Wood's had a hard life, and she wants a life kind of more like her friend's family, and says, well, maybe I could even stay in town, and maybe that would work out, and maybe I'd get a man who would stay with me. But there's a part of her that doesn't feel like she deserves it. So in the future timeline, her good marriage, she gets cheated on.
Well, there was an interesting thought I had on that, which is essentially because the proposition that she's creating, because this professor is so much older than her, that she could be disrupting his life with his family to create this future life. So then it breaks down again when he cheats on her, and that's not actually ever explicitly laid out, but you don't ever see the face of the girl that he's with.
Yes, and I was wondering before we knew the whole thing wasn't really happening, is she imagining that she's cheating on him? And I think that's also you could read it that way.
Well, and the
because
whole
she
thing
kind of
with
disappears.
Emma, because Emma is the name, she has an abortion in the movie, and Emma was the name that she claimed that she was going to take for a future child. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so as part of this, a world that she's imagining, Emma has problems at the school and keeps running away because Emma's not actually there, because Emma's already gone. And so that's part of what ends up deconstructing this vision as she comes back to the bathroom and says, no, shoot me. Interesting the way that they constructed it. I think, like you said, it would probably be far more effective as a book. How do you think it ended up actually turning out in terms of the movie?
I just couldn't. As I said, I think there's parts of it I liked, and there's parts of the performances I liked, and it just didn't gel. It never fully gelled together for me.
Yeah,
and it tried too hard, as I said before.
I think I tend to agree. I think it just overreached in its scope and what it was trying to do. So for me, it didn't land. We certainly watch worse things on this podcast. I would probably rate this kind of torn between 5 and 6 stars on the 10-star scale. 1, maybe 1.5 on the 4-star scale.
Yeah, I'm going to give it 2 on the 4-star scale. For a while, I even thought maybe 2.5, but I'm going to give it 2, and I'm going to give it 5 on a 10-star scale.
This had a budget of $13 million. It had an opening weekend of $20,000, a domestic gross of $303,000, and a worldwide gross of $7.2 million.
Okay.
So interesting that it made so much more reportedly across foreign. Its release date was actually September 2008.
Okay.
Is when it released.
Maybe it made a... I'm seeing April 2nd, 2008 when I just Googled it. That was probably its premiere.
Okay.
Maybe a film festival or something.
Yeah.
The film has a 24% Rotten Tomatoes score, which I did one of the few things I saw before we started it. So I said going in, I don't think I'm going to like this. And 38% TV Guide with a 6.3 IMDb rating.
Yeah.
I beat you.
Did you happen to catch through context clues where this film was made?
No. I couldn't quite make out the license plates. They show license plates several times, but I couldn't.
The license plates are Connecticut license plates.
Okay.
And that's where it was filmed. A couple trivia items from IMDb. At the start of the movie, when Uma Thurman's character is flipping through the radio stations, one of the songs you hear is She's Not There by the Zombies from 1964, which was covered under the title About Her by Malcolm McLaren, and the cover was used in Kill Bill Volume 2, in which Uma also starred in.
Yes. It's a good song.
The names of the 26 victims seen on the memorial banner, with the exception of the prominent characters such as Maureen and Mr. McLeod, are the names of members of the production crew who worked on the film.
Morbid.
This is perhaps a little disparaging of the film, but this film was nominated for 2 awards.
Are they Razzies?
Nope, one was a grand jury award, and it won that. I assume that's some sort of film festival. Oh, in fact, that is the New Hampshire Film Festival. The second award was a Women's Film Critics Circles Award, and it was nominated for the Hall of Shame. Are you ready for the caption on this? You ready? Mm-hmm. It says, in other words, a woman's place is in the delivery room, not exactly a road movie, but certainly an anti-abortion mandatory teen motherhood guilt trip. All that's missing are the pamphlet tables in the theater lobbies.
Yeah, you're right. When you put it like that, you're right. It's like she had to die because she killed her baby.
Yeah, I didn't catch that heavily.
Mm-hmm. Again, it's kind of subtle.
Yeah, in real time. This was directed by Vadim Perelman, whose other, like what he's known for is The House of Sand and Fog, Persian Legends, and Is Many. He also directed the recent release The Missing.
I can see some House of Sand and Fog in this.
Any other thoughts on this film?
Yeah, it was odd.
Yeah, it was definitely different.
It overreached. It's like it's kind of an art. It's a weird combination of it wants to be an indie art film and it wants to be a Christian film.
Its composition is very... Yeah, the composition is what both makes and doesn't make this film.
It's never entirely one or the other.
Yeah. And I think that's probably what makes this film kind of black.
And makes it kind of hard to digest because you don't know what you're chewing on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not clear that what timeline, what narratives are actually real until the very end of the film. So. And
I thought that in many a film, that twist at the end, that no, she's the one that died, would piss me off. But in this film, it kind of felt kind of right.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
They built to it properly.
I accept it. Yeah.
Well, if there's nothing else, I'm Rob.
I'm Nate.
And this is Rob and Nate Record a Podcast. Okay, are we ready for this?
We're ready.
Are we doing the Rob and Nate introduction, or how are we?
I guess we can do that, yeah.
Okay.
Lucky Strike. It's toasted.
Is that really one of their ads?
Yeah. Haven't you seen the pilot episode of Mad Men?
I just don't remember that ad.
He comes up with that ad, even though it was actually Lucky Strike's slogan going back to like the 20s.
Yeah. I just remember like all the World War II films, like whenever someone lights up, they're like, Lucky Strikes means finds tobacco, you know?
Indeed. So this movie was done by a production company called Magnolia Pictures. And I saw earlier today somebody had posted online about a show on Netflix called Sweet Magnolia. And I thought, man, kids today, back in my day, we had steel magnolias.
It's terrible. And I think I just took over someone else's TV.
Oh.
It wasn't a name I recognized, and I clicked on it anyway, and my TV did nothing.
Yeah, it might be a confused neighbor. What just happened?
Well, because it would have. I was doing the screen mirroring, so it would have put my iPad screen on their TV.
See that Mark Cuban was listed as a producer on this?
Yes. Yeah, I took over someone else's TV.
Oh. You can take it back over again and have the word sorry written.
Okay, you about ready?
Yeah.
I was trying to not be overly harsh of this movie, like in the thing, and especially that abortion narrative and stuff. But then
It tricked
also,
me a bit because I didn't know that's what I was going into.
were you not familiar with the Christian stories that came out of Columbine?
Yeah,
Like
you mentioned that before.
Yeah, this is amongst those. What I thought this possibly was going into it is the mother of one of the students wrote a book, and I was afraid it was that.
That, if I recall, there was a movie version of that was much more recent, like within the last 5 years.
I didn't know if the book had been made into a movie, but I knew the mom had written a book, and that it was popular in some Christian circles. So there was a brief window where I was like, please tell me this is not that. Which fortunately it was not, but it's amongst these other Christian books that were inspired by that. So,
My first memory of Columbine, the day it happened, the high school I went to was experimenting with block scheduling for like 2 weeks. And so we had extra long lunch periods. So me and some of my friends went to one of their houses, and we were coming back, and we were walking into the main entrance of the school, which I almost never used because of where my house was in relation to the school. I usually used a side entrance. And when you go in the main entrance, there's a counselor area. And that year, my senior year, 98, 99 school year, they had put in televisions throughout the school. They started doing video announcements. And I could see on the television the kids running out of a high school. And I didn't know the context for it. But that was the first, like, what's that about? And then, of course, after school, found out more about what had happened. And then we had a threatened copycat not long afterwards. There's some word got out through the ether. And a lot of people didn't come on the particular day that was supposed to happen.
we had a lot of things at our school, and Melinda and I both have similar memories of this. So the day of the Columbine shooting, I had something going on medically. Like, I can't remember if it was the day I had an MRI on my ankle or if I'd had a dentist appointment, but instead of going back to school, I went home. And so I was at home on the couch flipping channels when it came on all the news channels. So I watched it live, like right from the very first reporting, and basically watched the entirety of the coverage. And then when we went back to school, our school actually did operate the entire time that we were in high school. It always, and to this day, operates on the block schedule. So, which the oddest thing about the structure at our high school and the block schedule was lunches still to this day at 10:33 a.m.
Oh. Yeah, it's kind of awkward.
That's lunch, 10:33 a.m.
Yeah, kind of a flaw in the system.
But we had a lot of goths in our school, and they pulled all of them into the office the next day.
Profiling.
Well, because we had a large population that they were wearing trench coats and all that type of stuff, and they pulled them all into the office, and none of the trench coats, none of that was accepted afterwards, and they came down pretty harshly on the goths in our school.
It's interesting how iconic Columbine is.
Yeah.
Like, it's not the first school shooting, but it feels like it is. Like that's kind of the start date people use for when that started to become more common.
It coincides with the increasing media coverage in the 24 hours news cycle, and
yeah,
because it wasn't too long after CNN had come online.
Oh,
so
no, it's been
with the 24-hour cable news coverage.
CNN had been around since '81.
Okay, then I'm mistaken.
But it's the Fox News came in '96. And the MSNBC, I think, came around the same time. So probably the 24-hour news cycle, the multiple cable news networks, need something to cover. And this was something to cover.
Clearly this is prime in our memories because this was when both of us were in high school. So I didn't realize we both graduated the same year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep, 98, 99 was also my senior year.
Yeah.
So that was Melinda's junior year.
All right.
I have one more question for you, Nate.
All right.
Are you adding this DVD to your collection, or does it go to Savers?
This goes to Savers.
Okay.